Hey everybody, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Ashley here, owner, director of Mission Cognition Social Skills Development Centers. It's been a little while since our last video, and it's really just because real life happens. So I provide direct service. I regularly am working on site with the kids or running our virtual groups, and sometimes we just get busy, and the service we provide to our kids has to take priority. So as much as I love you all and disseminating information, that's always got to come first for us. But I am back, and we're up to letter I for our topics. And there's many things that are falling under the umbrella, or many topics that are falling under the umbrella of applied behavior analysis or social skills that begin with the letter I. Inferencing was one of the topics I was potentially going to talk about, or imitation, interverbals, but today I want to talk about intent. And I came up with the idea of intent because that's something that we were working on with our teens just last evening, and it was a really difficult concept. So teaching how to determine or identify someone's intent is a really important skill when you get into more nuanced social skills. And the reason intent is important is because it's going to give us a lot of information about how we should be responding in that moment to something that's happening, and also provides more information about potentially how we should be responding to things that may happen later on. So again, everything based off of that person's intent. And the way that we respond to things that happen to us that are accidental is most likely very different than the way we might respond to something that is done on purpose or intentionally. So if you're working with a population of learners who's working on some more nuanced social skills, such as determining intent, this is an episode for you. I mentioned that I wanted to address the topic of intent because it came up for us. It came up during our lesson for one of our teen groups last evening. So in the past few weeks, we've been working on topics like identifying opinion versus fact, understanding that it's okay to have differences of opinion and being open to the ideas of others. And if you disagree with opinions, that is absolutely fine, but there are appropriate or socially acceptable ways to disagree. And there are ways to disagree that are going to be considered more disrespectful and are going to hurt your relationships over time and most likely not move you closer to your goals. So fact versus opinion, that it's okay to disagree with opinions and disagreeing respectfully. So now that's really moved us forward in our conversation on the topics that make up the concept or domain or global focus area of perspective taking and point of view. So when you talk about opinions, people have different opinions because they have different beliefs about things or different perspectives or different points of view. So as we started to dive more and more into perspective taking, a lot of the materials or resources we were using are video modeling examples, role play scenarios, where situations in which the same thing happened to two people or a group of people, but it was interpreted very differently. They had different perspectives on it or different points of view. I'll give you a very basic example. We watched a short video clip of two friends walking down the street. They saw a dog ahead of them. One person had the thought bubble of that dog going to attack them. So clearly there's some sort of, and I shouldn't say clearly, because when I see that thought bubble, I'm immediately starting to think, okay, they're having that thought because maybe they had a past negative experience. Perhaps they got bit by a dog, or they saw somebody else get bit by a dog. They watched a video of a dog attacking someone. So they have this fear, which is associated with dogs. And that's because of my life experience or my learning history. That's all information that I have, or knowledge I have. That does not mean that our clients are able to make those inferences or make those determinations. So we want to make sure that we're breaking that down for them and we're walking them through those steps. So when this person sees the dog, they have the thought bubble of the dog attacking. Where did that thought come from? So we want to talk about what that person's experience or learning history might be that's shaping their perspective or their point of view. Now, I mentioned it was two people walking down the street that saw the dog. The other person has a thought bubble of wanting to play fetch with that dog. You see like a ball in their hand. So we talk about what that might mean, that person likes dogs, thinks dogs are friendly, wants to play with them. What would their past experience may have been, or what would their learning history with dogs be that's going to inform or shape their perspectives. So talking about perspectives, talking about point of view. We then start to talk about when you have those differing perspectives or those differing points of view and how you can be interpreting the same situation very differently. And that doesn't mean that somebody's lying. It doesn't mean that somebody's wrong. There's a past learning history, different experiences, different beliefs that are all going to inform the decision that you make about something, about what happened. There's also going to be missing pieces of information. Many times it's just miscommunication. But when we jump to conclusions and we assume the intent, that we know the intent of another person. So in that situation, I'm giving an example where somebody has done something to you, and your perspective of the situation is that they did it to you on purpose. And that happens a lot with our clients, jumping to that conclusion and then demonstrating an overreaction to something that turns a small problem into something that's quite a bit bigger. And that's certainly going to be a barrier for future social interactions or being able to maintain relationships long term. People don't like to be yelled at, especially for something that they didn't do. So being able to interpret someone's intent, trying to see things from their perspective are all going to be really important tools and skills to assist you in responding to situations appropriately. So when we talk about perspective, when we talk about intent, it's a very abstract concept. So how do we structure that and formalize that a little bit more? So I'm going to give an example of walking down the hallway. So you're walking down the hallway in school, and hallways can be quite crowded. Somebody bumps into you. Is it on purpose? Was it done intentionally, or was it by accident? How are you going to respond if it was intentional? And how are you going to respond if it was an accident? We need to break that down and make it very clear for our participants. And I really think that the best way to do that is think about your own experience. How did you know? How do you know on a daily basis whether something's on purpose or by accident? And it's not some magical answer or some special skill that some people have that others don't. We can break it down. So typically, we're first going to look at, well, what is our learning history, our past experience with this person? Do I know them? And if I know them, do I know them in a positive way or in a negative way? Are they a friend of mine? Have we had friendly interactions in the past? If that's the case, then I would err on the side that this is most likely an accident. Is this somebody that I don't know at all? A little bit more difficult to discern if there's no learning history. Is this somebody that you know and those past interactions have been negative or aversive in nature? They're a school bully, or they've picked on you, or they've teased you in the past, or this is like the third time this week that they've bumped into you. All of those things lean me towards feeling that this may be done on purpose, okay? So that's looking at past experiences and what your relationship is with that person. There are also things that you can look at in the moment. So you can tact, facial expression, and body language. Were they looking at you when they bumped into you? That seems like it may have been kind of planned because they saw you and they still bumped into you. Were they looking down at their shoes? Were they busy in their backpack? If they were not looking at you, it seems a little bit less likely or less probable that was planned, okay? So we're thinking about the past learning history. What's your relationship with that person? And then we're also looking at, what do they look like in that moment? Where were their eyes? What is their facial expression like? Now, what about what happened after the behavior, after they bumped into you? Did they laugh? Did they make some sort of negative comment? Or did they apologize and try to, fix this? Oh, so sorry for bumping into you, fix the situation a little bit. If they laughed or they made another negative statement, that's another tick or tally in the box of, hey, this may have been intentional. If they apologized, they looked upset, they wanted to kind of make you feel better, that's a tick on the side of accidental. So it's very important that we are able to pause in that moment, determine intent, try to see the other person's perspective. If they were looking down at their feet, they didn't notice you. They bump into you by accident. And if you yell at them, hey, watch where you're going, that could actually hurt their feelings. And now who's the mean one in that scenario? You yelled at them on purpose, but they bumped into you by accident. So your response doesn't match the initial behavior or that intent of the other person. So that's where miscommunications come from. So trying to assign intent to another person, or guessing at what their point of view or their perspective might be, we need to take into consideration the other clues, again, that you have from that learning history and what you can see in that moment to determine intent and identify perspective more accurately. And when we're able to do that, we can then control how we respond to certain situations. Somebody bumping into me by accident and saying, oh, sorry, is a very quick thing. Oh, no worries, no problem, keep it moving. Okay, somebody bumping into me by accident and me yelling at them can escalate that into something that's really unpleasant and didn't need to happen. And then certainly if it's something that's done on purpose, we need to break that down in more detail. How often is it happening? Are you being harmed physically? At what point do you need to escalate that to a level that you need to involve other people? Or is it something where you can try to self-advocate and be a little bit more firm in that moment? So again, you can take these really complex, abstract, or nuanced skills, and you can break them down to be more specific so that you can present them to your learners in a way that you can systematically teach and they can systematically practice the skill. If you tuned into other episodes, you hear me talking a lot about behavioral skills training, BST. So that's your instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. This skill lends itself nicely to that. So you can role play situations in which you bump into somebody by accident. You can role play situations in which you bump into somebody on purpose or with the intent to just disrupt them or annoy them or bother them. And then you can teach your client or your learners the skills to respond differently dependent upon those situations. So make sure you're using your multiple exemplar training. Try to teach loosely situations that simulate what would happen in the natural environment so that you're promoting generalization. I hope that this was useful to you and gave you a little bit more confidence in the fact that yes, social skills are complex, they're tricky and they're nuanced, but you can break down those really challenging, abstract skills that you might think, well, I just know that. You don't just know that. There are things that you are seeing in the moment, or other private events that are happening that you can tact that help you to display this skill more in a more socially acceptable way or a more effective way throughout your day-to-day life, because things like this happen all the time. So they're all important skills that we're teaching our clients. You want to make sure that you're doing that in a conceptually systematic way. All right, well, I will see you next time. If you found this video to be of value or you were interested in teaching play or social skills in general, I encourage you to subscribe. We really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next episode.